Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, my dear students. Hope you are all well by the grace of Almighty Allah. However, in this pandemic situation, stay at home and abide by all the health instruction already given to you so that you can stay safe. All of you know that Rajuk Uttara Model College has taken some great initiatives like introducing online classes, taking exams, and uploading video lectures on our college website. And this is a continuous process. So you should try to keep visiting our college website so that you can get newer videos on different topics in different subjects. Hello, today I am here with you, Moazzem Hossain, lecturer in English, Rajuk Uttara Model College. And I will discuss with you a lesson from English for Today book that is from Unit 1, Lesson 3. And the title of the topic is Two Women. The two women, one of them is Valentina Tereshkova, who was born in Soviet Union, and another woman is Kalpana Chawla, who was born in India. Both of them are very determined and they had a strong determination, strong will for space science and space traveling. And the first one, Valentina Tereshkova, was very successful in her mission, but unfortunately, Chawla faced a fatal accident and died. At the end of our lesson today, the students will be able to know about these two great women in the history of space science in details and know synonym and antonyms of some keyword or new words used in this passage, to use preposition in correct context, and they will be also able to use a summary appropriately for the exam. Let's take a look at Valentina Tereshkova's life. The first part is about background and education of Valentina Tereshkova. The second part is about selection as a cosmonaut, a turning point, which was a turning point of her life and her trainings. The third part is about her historical achievements and also discussed about her present condition in this passage. Okay, let's start today's topic. One thing I would like to suggest you that when you start reading any passage, you should try to read passage for the first time and then underline the meaning of the new words, which meaning you don't know. You should try to find out the meaning of the word from it. You should look up the meaning of the word from a standard dictionary, and you can write it down in a notebook or diary so that you can revise again next time. So for the second time, you should try to read this passage with the meaning of the new words so that the meaning is very clear to you. So I would like to suggest you to read a passage for at least 2 times. And you have to answer from any passage of your textbook 3 questions, actually 4 questions. From the first question, you have to answer 5 MCQ pattern questions, and then in part B, you have to write 5 question answers, which is of 10 marks. And from the second passage, you are supposed to write either a flowchart or an information transfer. So you have to practice the passage for flowchart and writing information transfer also. And from the third question, from the third passage, you have to write a summary of a passage that is given to your question paper. Okay, let's start our lesson today. Valentina Tereshkova was born in the village Maslenikovo, Tutavesky district in Central Russia. Tereshkova's father was a tractor driver and her mother worked in a textile plant. So you know the meaning of tractor driver. Her father was a tractor driver and her mother worked in a textile plant. Let us know the meaning of textile plant: garment factory or cloth factory or fabric industry. That means that her mother worked in a garments. Tereshkova began school in 1945 at the age of 8. So you know that she was late going to school. At the age of 8, she went to school, but left school in 1953. That is also at the age of 8 years. It may be because of her poverty and because of her father's death. Um, her father died at an early age when she was very at an early age. And she continued her education through distance learning. You know the meaning of distance learning, that to take education using computer aid and internet, uh, uh, as you are doing classes now. She became interested in parachuting from a young age and trained in skydiving at the local aero club, making her first jump at the age 22 on 21st May 1959. At that time, she was employed as a textile worker in a local factory. So she was also employed. She also worked in a local factory as textile worker, like her mother. And it was, I think, it was because of her poverty of her family. It was her expertise in skydiving that led to her selection as a cosmonaut. So she had a great expertness or uh, skill in skydiving, and that was the turning point that made her selection as a cosmonaut. So let us find out some meaning of the words from this first part of the passage. First one is textile plant, that means garment industry, garments factory, cloth factory, or fabric industry. Second one is expertise, that means skill, someone's expertness or aptness. And this word is used as abstract noun. Cosmonaut means a space traveler or an astronaut. Parachuting means dive or jump from an aircraft by a parachute, by using a parachute. So this is the new words here. So we get here about a clear idea about Valentina Tereshkova's early life and her education and her profession also. Let's go to second part of the passage. After the flight of Yuri Gagarin was the first human being to travel in outer space in 1961 actually. The Soviet Union decided to send a woman in space. On 16 February 1962, Polataria Valentina Tereshkova was selected. Polataria means here working class people. You know that her mother worked in a garments factory and her father was a tractor driver. So she was from a working class family. But she was lucky enough to be selected in 1962. And among 400 applicants, the project called 400 applicants, and fortunately, Tereshkova was selected for the mission. Tereshkova had to undergo a series of training. You know the meaning of this word undergo. Undergo means experience or go through or suffer. Experience or go through, that is the best meaning here. So Tereshkova had to undergo a series of training that included, these are the name of the trainings: weightless flight, isolation test, centrifuge test, rocket theory, spacecraft engineering, 120 parachute jumps, and pilot training in MiG-15 UTI jet fighter. So that was a long process, long training that she had to undergo for uh, for making his travel in the space. Let's come to the third part of the passage. Since the successful launch of spacecraft, you know the meaning of this word launch, that means start, of spacecraft Vostok 5 on 14 June 1963, Tereshkova began preparing for her own flight. On the morning of 16 June 1963, Tereshkova and her backup cosmonaut, backup means here alternative, companion, co-partner, like this. Spacecraft means spaceship or aircraft. Slovakia, her backup cosmonaut, Slovaka, were dressed in spacesuit and taken to the space shuttle launch pad by a bus. So Tereshkova, along with her partner, reached to the space shuttle by a bus there. After completing her communication and life support checks, when everything that means when everything was okay, when everything was ready for her travel, for her first travel, she was sealed inside Vostok 6. Finishing a 2-hour countdown, Vostok 6 launched faultlessly. So there we get some more new word here, that is seal. Seal means shut down or close down. Space shuttle, that means spacecraft or spaceship or aircraft. And another word, you can I think you know the meaning of this word countdown. Countdown means counting 2 hours from the last to the first. 2 hours, 1 hour 59 minutes, 1 hour 58 minutes, like this. Okay, let's go to the next part of the passage. Although Tereskova experienced nausea, you know the meaning of this word nausea, a feeling of sickness, especially like vomiting, an experience of vomiting, a feelings of vomiting. So she was not physically comfortable at all while making her journey. And physically, she felt very discomfort for much of the flight. She orbited the Earth 48 times. So orbit means go round 48 times and spent almost 3 days in space. So she spent almost 3 days in space with a single flight. She logged more flight time than the combined times of all American astronauts who had flown before that date. So that means there were some more astronauts, American astronauts, who made their travel on the space, and the time record was much more better for Valentina Tereskova comparing to the total time of the American astronauts. Tereskova also maintained a flight log. So log means recorded, a flight log, and took photographs of the horizon, which were later used to identify aerosol layers within the atmosphere. So horizon means skyline, and aerosol means a gaseous substance or smoke or foggy type gas. So she also took some photographs of the horizon, and these photographs are used to identify aerosol layer. Aerosol layers, layer actually is the name of a layer in the atmosphere. Next, come to the part fifth year. Vostok 6 was the final Vostok flight and was launched 2 days after Vostok 5. So Vostok 5 started, and 2 days later, Vostok 6 started for space, which carried Valery Bykovsky into a similar orbit for 5 days. So Vostok 5 carried Valery Bykovsky, and she orbited for 5 days, landing 3 hours after Tereskova. The two vessels approached each other within 5 kilometers at one point. So the two ship, Vostok, two spaceship actually, Vostok 5 and Vostok 6, both of the ships were at a point, the distance was only 5 kilometers. And from space, Tereskova communicated to his Bykovsky and Soviet leader Khrushchev by radio. I think there is no new words used here. You know the meaning of this word. Two vessels. Vessels means here spaceship or spacecraft or aircraft like this. Orbit means to move around, to go around. You know the meaning of other words here. Okay. Let's go to the last part of the passage. This was all about her mission to the space, and then comes much later in 1977, Tereskova earned a doctorate in engineering from Zhukovsky Air Force Academy. So in 1977, at the age of 37 actually. So at the age of 40, I think, Tereskova earned a doctorate degree, that is PhD degree in engineering. Afterwards, she turned to politics. So she got involved in politics in her later life. During the Soviet regime means here rule, Soviet rule, she became one of the Presidium members of the Supreme Soviet. You know the meaning of this word Presidium? We also use in our country Presidium, this word, very common word. A permanent member of a large political party. Now this living legend is a member of in the lower house of Russian legislature. Legislature means parliament or assembly, or we also called it Congress. Congress. Okay. On her 17th birthday, this is very interesting fact. On her 17th birthday, when she was invited by the Russian Prime Minister Vladimir Putin, she expressed her desire to fly in the Mars, even if for a one day trip. So that is the passion for space, actually, that she All through her life, she dreamed of traveling to the space, and she made her dream fulfill. And she had a strong desire, even now, at days of uh, at an at a very old age. She also now expresses her desire so that she can go to the Mars. Mars is the name of a planet, Mongol Groho, we call it Bangla. So she wishes to travel to Mars, if it is even for a one day trip. So resign means rule, president means a permanent member of a large political party, legend means myth or celebrity, and legislature means parliament, assembly, and congress or congress. So these are the new words used in blue color, green color here. So when I suggest you, when you read any passage, you should at first find out some new words and look up the word in a dictionary, and then try to write down write down in a page, and then you can reread the passage for the second time so that you can have a clear idea about the content of the passage. I told you earlier that you have to answer some MCQs, uh, 5 question answers, and then from another passage you have to write a flowchart or information transfer, and then question number 3, you have to write a summary of the passage, of any passage. Let's talk now about, I will discuss you today about the summary of this passage. Suppose in your question paper, you are asked to write a summary of this passage in your own words. Let's come to know about the definition of a summary. What is a summary? A summary is not a rewrite of the original text. Rather, use your own words to express the main ideas of the passage very briefly. So it means that you don't need to copy from the text. Rather, you have to use your own language, own expression, own words to make the meaning clear here, and that should be very brief. It should not be too long. The purpose of a summary writing is to give the basic idea of the original reading to the readers. Then let's discuss about some points on how to write a summary. Very basic question, because in our country most of the students are not able to write a summary perfectly. They just copy some sentence from here and there and put together in a passage. And some of them are writing a very large summary. They are writing they are making 2 or more paragraphs. They don't have any idea actually how to write a summary. So these are the points you must focus on while writing any summary of a passage, any passage from your textbook. Uh, you know that all your 3 passages will be selected from your textbook. So there is no alternative to read your textbook again and again very carefully. However, let's come to the point here. The first one is read the whole passage at least for 2 times very carefully. I told you earlier that at first you should read the passage for the first time, then try to guess the meaning of the new words, which meanings you don't know. Then you should read the passage for the second time so that you can have a clear meaning here. Then you should underline the main sentence from each parts of the given passage. Suppose in this passage, we get here 6 parts, I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So from this 6 part, you have to focus some main sentence or key sentences which you use in your summary. Next point is don't go for every details. Just focus on the major sentences. You don't need to explain your summary or any sentences. You have to just keep on your major sentences or major points. You have to focus on. The length of a summary should be 1/3 of the given passage, but that is not mandatory. It is an international standard that your summary should be 1/3 of the given passage, but it depends on your volume of passage. Suppose you are given a very large passage, then you should try to keep it in 1/4 or 1/5 maybe also. So, so you should write it very precisely. Uh, it's my opinion. It's my personal opinion that you can write your summary within 70 or 80 words, but that is not mandatory. That's my opinion, my suggestion that your summary should be within 70 or 80 words, especially for the students of SSC exam or higher secondary level. Or you can write your summary within 5 or 6 sentences. That is a standard for the students of higher secondary level, I think. within 5 or 6 sentences. Okay, then your summary should be like a mirror. That means your summary should reflect all the major ideas used by the author. That is, when a reader reads your summary, he or she can very clearly understand what is inside the passage, what is the main theme of the passage. He or she can understand it very clearly. So it should be like a mirror reflecting all the major ideas. Then I suggest you not to copy any sentence from your passage. Rather, use your own language, vocabulary, and words. There are some students, I told you that they are copying one sentence from here to from middle section of the passage and one from the last of the passage. That is not the way to writing in the summary. They are getting very poor marks, only pass marks. But if you want to have a good score, to get a good score on summary, then you must use your own language, own vocabulary. Avoid all kinds of examples. If there is any interrogative sentence, you should avoid that interrogative sentence in your summary. You should also avoid all kind of exclamation, if any, used in the passage. Then you should not use any quotation here while writing in a summary. While writing a summary, there is suppose some quotations by some famous persons in the passage, but you should avoid that passage. You should write that in using third person narrative. Okay. Never use first person narrative. Use third person narrative instead. There are some passages I can recall from your text. Suppose the 7th March speech of Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. So there are some parts of the speech which is written in first person narrative, but while writing summary you should use third person narrative. That means you should use he or she or they. You can never use I or we. You can never use. Again, Amerigo Street Boy. In this name, there is a passage in your text also, which is used in first person narrative. But you must write the summary using third person. And another passage from the story The Luncheon. The Luncheon by William Somerset Maugham, that is given in your text also. In this passage, the writer uses first person narrative, but while writing the summary of the passage, you should write also it in third person. You can never use I or we here. The last point is that a summary does not need any title. There are some students who are using title, but you can never use the title here. And your summary must be within a single paragraph. Some students are making 2 or 3 paragraphs, but your summary must be within a single paragraph. There is no alternative to these rules here. So these are the all rules which you should focus while writing in a summary to get a good marks. And lastly, I will give an example of writing the summary of the passage. At first, you should put your question mark here, answer to the question number 3. Then you can write summary. I read the summary. Valentina Tereshkova is a brave woman who showed her outstanding performance in the field of space science. Despite being born in a poor working class family, she had a dream of becoming an astronaut. It was her expertise in parachuting and skydiving that helped fulfill her dream. After being selected within 400 applicants, she had to go through a series of hard training. After the completion of all the formalities, she, along with her backup cosmonaut, was sealed inside Vostok 6. Vostok 6 is the name of spaceship that was used by Valentina Tereshkova. Valentina Tereshkova orbited the Earth for 48 times. 48 times, that is used in the passage, and spent almost 3 days in space. Later, this living legend got involved in politics and now a member in the lower house of Russian legislature. So that is all about Valentina Tereshkova. And I counted here, I wrote 7 sentences, but you should try to keep it within 5 or 6 sentences. As I write the summary of the whole passage, this is a large passage here, so the summary is a little large. But I think that in your exam, you will be given a part of the passage, not the whole passage, I think. Then you can easily write it within 5 or 6 sentences. And I counted here, I used 86 words, but these words excluding article and preposition. I don't count article and preposition here. So the keyword I used here are 86, but you should try to keep it within 70 or 80 words. Okay. So that's all for today, but I would ask you to do some homework today. I will ask you to make a summary from the lesson 2 of unit 1. So I asked you to write summary following this structure and using your own words, and you can take it as a sample summary, and I will ask you to write the summary of unit 1 lesson 2. I will ask it for a homework. Okay, thank you dear students, thank you everyone for watching this video. Allah Hafiz.